The governor of the U.S. state of Kentucky says search and rescue efforts are continuing following torrential rain that's killed at least 16 people. Andy Beshear says the death toll will rise as floodwater recedes and search teams find more bodies. Rescuers are using helicopters and boats to locate people in submerged homes and cars in the Appalachian coal mining region. Most of Jackson, a town of more than 2,000 people, is now underwater. Let's talk to Professor William C. Haneberg, state geologist and director of Kentucky Geological Survey Research and professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences. Professor, welcome. First of all, can you give us an idea of what you're hearing, the extent of the devastation caused by this flooding?
Thank you. And I'm sorry it's under such tragic circumstances. So the extent covers several counties in eastern Kentucky. Each county is about 1,000 square kilometers. So overall, we're talking about a geographic area that might cover 10,000 square kilometers, although the flooding itself, of course, is confined just to the narrow river valleys and doesn't cover that entire large area. But it is a large portion of eastern Kentucky.
And for an international audience, can you explain how unprecedented such extreme weather events are for Kentucky and this region specifically?
Yeah, we're hearing it. It's certainly unprecedented in the lives of the people that live there. I think over the coming days and weeks, as we start getting in all the data from the different rain gauges and river gauges in the region, we're going to find in a lot of cases that these are rainfall and flooding levels that have never been recorded before in records going back at least a century. One of the figures I saw was they received greater than 25 centimeters of rain in just a few hours, which is almost unbelievable to imagine what that must have been. And by comparison, the average annual rainfall there is probably 110 or 120 centimeters, and they received over 25 in just a few hours.
Hindsight is a great talent. Could this loss of life have been in any way avoided?
You know, that's a really difficult question because it is a flood-prone area. Flooding has always occurred there. What we know is that the likelihood of these kind of events is increasing and is going to continue to increase because of global warming. So you could look back to, say, the 1960s and 70s when we first started to understand scientifically the magnitude of the threat. And it's possible that if we had started taking actions then to reduce emissions, then it may have been much more likely that the storm would have occurred. There may have been a storm. It may not have been as large. So we can't say with exactitude that the storm would not have occurred without global warming, but events of this magnitude are certainly more likely because of global warming. And as we move into the future, we think they're going to become increasingly more likely and more common.
Can you give us an idea of the communities involved? Are they socially and financially robust? Will they be able to withstand what's happened and rebuild?
That's one of the critical issues in terms of looking at the risk as we look at the natural hazard, of course, but also the vulnerability and the community resilience. And this is an area that was never a rich area. It was a mountainous area. It saw its peak of prosperity because of coal mining, but coal mining has been going down since about 2000, and there's very little of it going on now. So in a lot of ways, it's a very economically stressed area, and they have few resources there. The county governments are very small. The state, of course, is stepping in, and President Biden has declared it a disaster area. But the towns themselves are small rural towns, maybe a couple thousand people at most, maybe in some of these places just a few hundred people. So they're small towns without a lot of resources. And it's also a very rugged mountainous area. You might, to get to a point 10 kilometers away, you might actually have to drive 20 or 30 kilometers on the winding mountain roads. So it's very difficult to access physically in a lot of cases as well.
Do tragic events like this change the debate there around climate change, or do the folks just shrug their shoulders and say, well, this is just one of those things?
I think they are. It's tragic that it takes something like this, maybe for the conversation to be advanced. My area of specialty is geologic hazards, and unfortunately we see that in a lot of areas, earthquakes, landslides, and everything else. So I think it will continue to shift the conversation. We had some extremely severe tornadoes in the western part of Kentucky last December. About a year and a half ago, we had a really significant flooding event, maybe not quite as severe as this one, that an entire town not too far from where today's or this week's flooding has been going on. So I think as we see those more and more often and they impact people on the ground, the conversation may change, but we still have a lot of people, and especially a lot of our political leaders, are denying that this is going on, or in some cases, people have gone as far to try to say that the global warming is good because plants like carbon dioxide, and we actually need more carbon dioxide, which is, I think, a very dangerous statement to make.
Professor, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. Professor William C. Haneberg in Kentucky.
Thank you.